I thought this was a wonderful debate, and I want to congratulate both sides. It was very informative in covering a number of issues that are important to the movement. I am put in a unique position, and probably a regrettable one, that this debate ultimately comes down to a question of pragmatism versus idealism. In that sense, while I appreciate the negative argument about the necessity of sexual revolution, it seems that the affirmative has done a better job of characterizing that as very, very idealistic, and even more importantly, a movement that would be unsure of its own success. In that sense, I'm very persuaded by the affirmative's arguments that the goal for social acceptance is one that would be very difficult to judge and may vary from person to person. Even with the Audre Lorde's evidence that the negative presents, it seems a little bit unclear to me how exactly we would judge the success of the sexual revolution. Now, in many debates, I think that this could be avoided either by the negative making this a much more pragmatic position and one which determines its own success. It has a certain criteria or a certain goal in mind, but that really didn't occur in this particular debate. Meanwhile, the affirmative did a very nice job of presenting a very specific criteria for success, and even commenting in the first speech that the goal of same-sex marriage is obtainable within the next 5 years. That was a pretty important point to me when I look back on things, because I believe the strongest point the affirmative has against the sexual revolution argument is we'd be unsure of when the end point for the sexual revolution is. Now, all of the negatives arguments about the necessity of dealing with our bodies, and indeed the arguments about dividing the queer movement between good queer and bad queer, are not really answered by the affirmative, and those are very good points. But it's very difficult for me to figure out what the end point of a problem for sexual revolution would be. On the other side of the debate, the affirmative has done a nice job of presenting exactly the criteria for marriage and making it both an obtainable goal and one that results in very, very concrete, everyday changes, in addition to noting domestic concerns, health insurance, health care, any number of those problems are presented on the affirmative side that the negative really doesn't deal with. I understand the negative's argument that the sexual revolution can include these also. However, I'm very, very wary of adopting that as a particular goal. So in this particular debate, there was a lot of work that probably could be done to make the sexual revolution both more practical and to figure out how we should strive towards that particular goal as an orientation. That being said, there probably is a lot of room for compromise, and I'm not totally convinced that the goals for seeking same-sex marriage necessarily oppose the goals of the sexual revolution. It seems that this may be a problem of tactics, not necessarily a problem of orientation. But that's probably a point that neither side made. As far as I was concerned, though, in this particular debate, the affirmative did a much better job of trying to present how their solution and program is much more obtainable, and thus gives me a better possibility of realizing the gains for a number of people by advocating same-sex marriage. But again, a great job, and congratulations to everyone.